Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. My name's Adam Osprey. I am a Policy and Development Pharmacist with Community Pharmacy Scotland. We are here to talk to you today about the NHS Pharmacy First service, which will be replacing the minor ailment service as you know it shortly in April this year. I'm joined today with my colleague Kathleen Cowle, who is a member of the Community Pharmacy Scotland Board. We're here really to talk to you about the biggest change to the community pharmacy contractual framework for well over a decade, and just to talk to you really about a number of things. We're going to start off with the why. So why is it that we're replacing the minor ailment service? It works well. We know people really like it. There's a lot of depth to this, and my colleague Kathleen will talk you through that and give the Community Pharmacy Scotland Board perspective. She'll then move on to talk about the funding model, so talk about the funding that Scottish Government have agreed with Community Pharmacy Scotland to underpin the new service. Then I'll take over and talk a little about actually delivering NHS Pharmacy First, talking about some of the key operational aspects that will make it a bit easier for you to deliver than perhaps the minor ailment service is just now. We'll round up with a few of the key messages that we'd like you to take away from the webinar, and then get you on your way back to work, or perhaps back to your dinner or your bed, again depending on when you're watching. So I'm going to hand over now to Kathleen, who will take you over the why.
Hi everyone, so as Adam says, I am going to start by taking you through the why we are replacing the minor ailment service, and hopefully we'll be able to get you to a place of understanding that it's not only the right thing to do, but it's something that we actually have to do. The first thing to say is that this is a new service, and it takes Scotland back to being the world leading deliverer of services within community pharmacy. We've always been innovative and we've always been ahead of the rest of the country, but this has taken us again back to our place of being developing services ahead of the rest of the world. While the mass minor ailment service has been seen to be a huge success for many, as a fantastic service for many and accessible to many, it still isn't perfect. It isn't available to everyone. Community Pharmacy Scotland have been advocating for a long time to make the service available to all, and therefore make the consultations and the treatment that people can receive in Scotland the same. We've also got the NHS has got into a place where it needs the services to be consistent, and it needs to be confident that it works across Scotland for all the people of Scotland. But what's also really important for us is this gives community pharmacy an opportunity to build on our reputation from the minor ailment services and other services that we've delivered, and truly cement our place in the NHS for Scotland. If we go back a little bit and look at the journey that we've been on, there's many pharmacists out there like me who remembers being a pharmacist in the back of the dispensary and primarily being focused on delivering the dispensing service. Up until 2006, this was a large part of what community pharmacy delivered, and actually was probably what we were recognised for, and that was our reputation. For some of our newer pharmacists, you may find that hard to believe. In 2006, it was recognised that we could deliver so much more, and this led to the development of the acute medication service, the minor ailment service, chronic medication service, and public health service. And while all of these have been equally important, Community Pharmacy Scotland has kept AMS and the acute medication service up there as one of our main focuses. It underpins much of what we do. It's our position that community pharmacy must retain all the aspects of medicine supply. I believe, and we've discussed many times, that the success of the minor ailment service and chronic medication service has been led through the opportunistic conversations that we have with patients as they come through our doors to receive their medication, and that has always and should always remain to be a key part of what community pharmacy does. However, in saying all that, it's really important that we recognise that over-reliance on reimbursement is not a long-term sustainable goal, and that we have to look to secure funding by other means, and primarily through remuneration through services. And we've been working over the last few years to shift a lot of our funding from reimbursement to remuneration, and it's some of the monies within that remuneration that will be repurposed for the new NHS Pharmacy First service. So what has got us to this place? Why are we looking at changing? Everyone will have seen in the last few years many businesses and organisations which we would have seen to be successful facing disruption and facing closure, causing huge impact on people's lives and current availability to other services. Some of the reasons behind this, some of the factors that influence this, is not recognising or not being able to react to changes in customer and patient behaviour, priorities and expectations. And I think it could be said that never more is that true within patients' expectations of the NHS and what they expect to receive and where they expect to receive it. There's been a huge emergence of new technologies and intelligent use of data. Data has become king and has become a commodity, and companies that haven't been able to develop and recognise this have faced significant difficulties. Public spending has never been scrutinised more. All the health boards have gone through different headlines over the last few months and few years where they have been really challenged on what they're delivering with the public money. Everybody has a greater focus on this. Every time someone comes into a health board to look at what has been delivered, we quite often hear the money that's been spent on the dispensing bill as being a key focus for us. And this is something that within community pharmacy we really need to understand and recognise. And over and above, and in the background to all of this, is the instability within the political and the commodity market. It's fair to say that even as we sit here today discussing the development of this new service, we don't know what the future holds on the back of even Brexit coming at the end of the month of January, and we don't know what impact that's going to have on many businesses and not just the NHS. What we do know, though, is that some of this is within our control and some of it isn't. The parts that are within our control, if we don't react to those and we don't understand the environment and the customers that we're working with, then it's very likely that someone will quite simply come along and do what we need and should be doing and potentially do it better. We can't afford to stand still and we can't afford to be complacent in what we're trying to achieve. So what do we need to do? So enough of the problems. What's the solution? Well, the solution that's within our hands is to listen and to develop a service that meets the needs of the customers, and to meet the needs of the customers in a way that no one else can. We need to make the most of the unique offering of community pharmacy and make the most of our unique set of skills and make the most of our accessibility and our place within communities. So what do we need to do to meet the needs of our customers? We need to understand the needs of the NHS and the boards within it. We need to understand that the drug bill will always be looked at and looked to for efficiencies. Even this week, we know that the Health and Sports Committee are looking at ways to improve the supply of medicines. They're looking at ways of driving efficiencies. We know and we need to recognise that the drug market is increasingly volatile, and as I've already said, again this year could see significant tests and changes for us. We need to understand, and it has been voiced many times, that the Scottish Government is intent on keeping people close to home for as long as possible and having services that are available to them that are reliable and consistent across all of Scotland. In the last year, in the last 2 years, it is recognised that some people in different parts of the country can't access the same services as others with the same ease, and that then leads to inconsistent outcomes. But what we do know is that Scottish Government and the NHS recognise community pharmacy as being right in the heart of these communities and well placed across all of Scotland to have a big impact in the solutions. The new GP contract is focusing on the role of the pharmacist, of the GP, to deliver services that only the GP can deliver. It's having to make It's asking them to really up their game and use their time to work on the really complex patients. But that doesn't mean there's going to be any less complex patients. There's always going to be people who present with straightforward conditions, whether they're acute or long term, that need to be looked after. And that's where we step in. That's where we come in with our ability to react to the acute needs of patients right on their doorsteps, and right at a time when the patient needs them. So what is our aim? What do we want to achieve? We want to fundamentally change how people access care and position ourselves at the heart of the NHS. We aim to meet the needs of the Scottish Government. We aim to fill the gap with the GPs focusing on the complex patients, and we want to do this and more by putting community pharmacy right at the heart of the NHS. From 2006 through to 2020, we have shown what impact community pharmacy can have on patient outcomes, and the majority of these have been recorded in items dispensed and registrations. We've been poor at recording all the other interactions that we have with patients that result in self-help and advice or referral. Much of the work we do through the minor ailment service goes unrecognised and unmeasured. We want to change that. We want people to be recognised for everything that they're delivering, because we know and evidence has shown that the patient outcomes that patients receive from a community pharmacy are equal to those in other settings, but actually more cost effective. And we want to again recognise that patients see us as being accessible and are overwhelmingly positive about the current services that we deliver. So we want to make sure that we deliver a service that not only maintains that positivity, but actually makes the most of it. So what does that mean we're going to do? So how will we know that we've been successful? What will the future hold? Well, hopefully we'll be sitting in a place in 5 years' time that we understand that between the supply of medicines, NHS Pharmacy First, the new Medicines Care and Review service, we will have put community pharmacy well and truly at the first port of call for routine health and advice and treatment. Patients will have been educated and they will understand that their community pharmacy is the place to go when they have a minor condition, or even when they have a long-term condition but they need support along the path and the journey that they're on. We'll have evidence to show that the services that we're delivering are delivering successful services for the people of Scotland, consistently across all of Scotland. And actually we'll have a contract that reflects this, that the funding that we receive will reflect the network's delivery of this role and will reflect the actual emphasis that we're putting on and being this first port of call for services. So we're going to just take a few minutes now just to think about where we are just now in terms of that funding and what's going to happen over the next year. Community Pharmacy Scotland have been working with the Scottish Government to develop the contract for 2020-2021, and we're probably as close as we've ever been to agreeing a deal at this time of year. It would be great for us to get the deal out there within the next month or two, and it sets us up really well for the year ahead. We're looking at a 3-year deal, which will have many benefits for us and for the health boards as well. It will provide stability and predictability for contractors, for our networks. It will provide stability for the government and for the health boards. It lets them understand what the funding looks like for the year ahead and actually what they can expect to see delivered through community pharmacy. More importantly, it also gives us time to look at what's next, to look at how do we develop what we've already got, and what is next for the patients and the public of Scotland. What do we need to do? What we don't know yet is the final details of all of this. It's likely that those details will come out in the next couple of weeks, but we do know that the Cabinet Secretary has absolutely shown a commitment to the development of the NHS Pharmacy First service. She has recognised this service as a game changer in what we will be able to deliver for the NHS, and as such has given us some commitments around the funding for the year ahead. So although we don't know what the whole package looks like, we can talk through the headlines for NHS Pharmacy First. So as I said, the commitment that has been shown from the Cabinet Secretary is that we will see 10 million come to Pharmacy First over the next 3 years. You can see in the table in front of you, 2021 we will see a 5 million contribution from Scottish Government, and that will eventually move towards 10 million. Community Pharmacy Scotland's contribution recognises the impact that this service is going to have on community pharmacy, and also the importance of making this a successful service. And as such, you can see that there's 20.8 million being contributed from Community Pharmacy Scotland. So that takes the existing minor ailment service funding of 15.8 and adds an additional 5 million. So in the first year, the total pot will be 25.8 million, and over the 3 years, that increases to a minimum of 30.8. This becomes one of the most significant and important services that we will deliver through community pharmacy, and the funding recognises that. So while I can't tell you the exact detail of how the money and the funding that we've just discussed will be split, in terms of how much will go into each pot, what I can tell you is what the basic model is going to look like. In year 1, each pharmacy will receive a base payment for service delivery, which will be the same for all pharmacies. So you can have the confidence that every month you will receive the same base payment for engaging with the service. There will also be an activity pool payment, which will be made available to those whose activity exceeds a set level. That set level is yet to be agreed, yet to be decided, but it will all be communicated in time before the service is completely rolled out. So an activity will count as a single consultation, a referral or supply, with activities involving the PGD's use carrying more weight to reflect the additional workload. So it will be really important for community pharmacies, community pharmacists and their teams to record consultations, referrals and supplies. As I mentioned earlier, we already record the supplies, but this new way of working involving recording consultations and referrals is really important so that we can get the recognition and the reward for all those currently unmeasured patient outcomes. So this slide hopefully summarises what we've just covered. As you can see, the base funding, all pharmacies will receive the same base payment for delivery of up to a number of activities and interventions. That number is yet to be decided. When you've exceeded that number of activities and intervention, you will then receive a payment from the activity pool, which will be directly proportional to your workload. And as we transition through the services, as we go through the next 3 years, what you will see is the base funding becomes less and less as we recognise the activity, so that in time we will move to reimbursing for activity more accurately as we're able to record more activities and understand the workload that's involved in that. We will change the funding to reflect, so those that are delivering more of NHS Pharmacy First services will be rewarded for that. There will be a base payment though that runs throughout all of that, which I guess is important for people to understand as well. So what's next? Well, there's still some work to be done with Scottish Government on the finer detail of the finances. Once finalised, that circular will land, and it is quite possible that it will be the circular that gives us the detail for the next 3 years. So it's quite possible that we will get not only the detail of NHS Pharmacy First service, but we'll also get the expectations and the agreed contract for the next 3 years, which I think, as I've said, will put us into a good place. We have spoken a fair bit now about the finance behind the NHS Pharmacy First service, and while it is important, it's not the only part of the picture. NHS Pharmacy First must be as simple to deliver as possible, and Community Pharmacy Scotland have worked really hard with their colleagues at Scottish Government to make that the case, to make sure that it is a service that can be delivered by everyone. It is a service though that will require the whole team to get behind the pharmacist, the whole team to get behind the communication and the engagement with the patients for it to stand a chance of success. And that's why we're taking the time to produce these webinars, so that you can get a chance to see where we've came from, understand why we've made the decisions that we have, and understand hopefully why we're in a position to say today that the NHS Pharmacy First is absolutely the right future for community pharmacy. I'm now going to pass you back to Adam, who's going to take you through the next part of the webinar.
Thanks very much, Kathleen. So that was really good to hear a bit about the background as to why we've ended up with the NHS Pharmacy First service looking the way that it does over time. What you'll probably be interested in hearing a bit more about, though, is about how you actually deliver Pharmacy First. So while Kathleen's done a bit of the why behind the service, I'm going to take you through a bit of the what. What does the service look like? What are the key operational aspects that you'll need to consider as a pharmacy team before the rollout in April 2020? When we talk about Pharmacy First or NHS Pharmacy First service, we've been spending the past couple of years out and about talking to community pharmacy teams and contractor owners about the sort of idea, at least back in the early stages, the idea was an expansion or extension of what was in the minor ailment service. And we went around and we kind of said to people, so what would you think if we did that? What would you think if we made the minor ailment service available to everybody? And really what we tend to find, no matter where we were, we tended to find that there was about a 50-50 split in reaction. We either got people saying, that is fantastic, I totally get it, it's always frustrated me as to how some people get to access the service and some people don't, where do I sign up? The other 50% of whatever room we're in says, what are you thinking? We can't possibly deliver this to even more people. And I completely understand, once you delve into the conversations, you can completely understand where both groups of people are coming from. But we have been listening. Some of the things that people said, probably people that are in the latter group who are thinking, actually, this is really not the best idea, they've been saying things like, okay, so there's no recognition of the advice that we give. We do so much for patients and the people of Scotland, and it's just never captured anywhere. So people don't understand the worth of community pharmacy, and I would completely agree with that. As a profession, we're not fantastic about capturing information about what we do, and shouting about how good we are at doing it. And part of that is actually, in the past, it's been quite hard to record that, and it's a very unnatural patient journey for them to come in, seek advice, for you to give them that advice, and then at the end of the consultation say, well, hold on a second there, while I go into the dispensary, access the computer, print you off a purple slip so that you can sign it. Bizarre. So yeah, it's very hard to record people's when you're just giving them advice or referring them on. What else do people say? There's a huge frustration out there about the differences that exist between different health boards and actually between pharmacies within health boards that can make it quite a difficult service to deliver, and difficult to explain to patients as well. A lot of patients end up with set expectations around things like they can expect certain things. And that's kind of linked in with the next point, and this one came through really strongly. The patient view of this service, for whatever reason, has drifted over time, because the minor ailment service was always about the consultations, but it has drifted more towards this is the free medicines service, and a lot of that is put down to the way that social media interactions, the way that patients have viewed the service and their expectations of the service, and their experience of the service has led them to believe this, and that can be quite a difficult expectation to manage. What else do people not particularly love about the current minor ailment service? Eligibility. Again, a very strange thing to say to somebody, oh, do you know if you're eligible for the minor ailment service? No? Oh well, it's if you didn't used to pay for your prescriptions, then you can access this service, which is a difficult enough sentence to say in itself. But then things got even more confusing when universal credit was introduced a number of years ago, which actually means that week to week, if you checked eligibility to the letter of the law, somebody can actually be eligible one week and not the next, depending on the level of their payment. So that clearly is just not workable in the real world. There's also just a general feeling amongst community pharmacy teams that knowing what's allowed and what isn't is impossible, and this really was particularly coming from people who worked across health boards, and I know certainly from my past it was very easy to work across 5 different Scottish health boards, and knowing the different rules and regulations between them and what's expected by the health board really is a challenge to keep up with. And finally, what everyone signed off on who's in that latter group of thinking that expanding the service wasn't a great idea, really was just, we cannot imagine delivering this to everybody. It'll swamp us. It's just too much. So we've listened to that, and we'll put that to the side for just now. What we actually got asked to do for the NHS Pharmacy First service, so this is the actual text from the programme for government that we found out about in October 2018. So that's to roll out an extended minor ailment and common clinical conditions service across all community pharmacies over the coming year. Now that was initially planned for launch in April 2019, so just about a year ago, which would have only left a couple of months for development. So at the time, it kind of seemed like a bit of a disappointment when the Cabinet Secretary, that's Jean Freeman for Health and Sport, deferred the launch until this April, but actually that was a blessing in disguise. That has left us with plenty of time in between to work with our Scottish Government and NHS colleagues on what the service actually looks like and make it as easy as possible for you to be able to deliver with your teams. So we've taken all that experience and feedback that I talked about on the previous slide, and what we did was, before we put pen to paper and decided some of the service operational aspects would look like, we agreed with our Scottish Government colleagues on a set of principles that we would work from and that we could refer back to as we developed the service. The most important one of all was really to do with messaging, and that I can't make clear enough, or I can't overemphasise. This is not delivering the minor ailment service to more people. It's not. There will be elements that seem the same, feel the same, but this has been redesigned, stripped back, streamlined is a word that we use quite a lot, to make it easy for you to deliver to more people. Some more of the principles. So we started off with a number of those, and we said straight away, this service has absolutely got to be simple first and foremost. It's got to be simple to understand, and that's what's led to the name of NHS Pharmacy First. Does what it says is on the tin. You go to your pharmacy first. It's also got to be simple to access. Doesn't matter who you are in Scotland, you've got to be able to walk into a pharmacy, describe what your symptoms are, and be seen by a member of that team and be taken care of. You shouldn't have to worry about whether you used to pay for your prescriptions, what's on your statement from the benefits department. None of that should matter. Especially when we think about some of the principles of this service are to help people access care more readily. Another thing we said was this service has got to be equitable. That kind of builds on the simple to access point that I made just there. So demographically, all has to mean all. So when they said that this would be an extended or expanded service, that seems pretty simple on the face of it, but actually you have to start thinking about, what about people in care homes? What about people who are incarcerated? And all these things that need to be thought about. So our position from the start was all really has to mean all to keep this simple. We also said it's got to be equitable geographically. So for contractors and for teams like your own, we cannot have 14 different formularies, for example. That is just not going to work. If you are a member of relief or locum population, you have to be able to go into a pharmacy and deliver what you delivered yesterday, even though you're 100 miles away. For contractors, it has absolutely got to be equitable in the opportunity that contractors have to engage in this service, to be rewarded for the volume of work that they do in this service. As Kathleen talked you through earlier on, we hope that the funding model will show you that that's how we've tried to design that into the service. Another point is actually the approach to promotion. So we doubt that there will be a big bang promotion with huge extended TV programs, but whatever is done to start telling people that this is the way that you access care for minor conditions has to be done the same across the whole country and not favour one contractor over another. We also said when we started out with Scottish Government that this service had to be achievable. So that meant as little administrative tasks as possible. Try and get rid of the paper was the mantra throughout of it. It also has to be achievable in terms of change. Again, Kathleen talked you through earlier how the funding has been designed to do that, to give people a level of comfort and assurance and give them time to change what they need to change in their business as we move more towards recognising the activity that's delivered in each pharmacy. it also has to be true of how we change how the service is delivered. We also said that evaluations got to be built in. Now, we ran our own minor ailments study that took over a year. All of you took part in that, for which we're eternally grateful. That gave us some really, really useful data about the qualitative stuff, how people felt about the service, what they liked about it, how other professionals saw it. However, what we really need to have is data points built in, or things that we record built into the service, so that we can look back at them at any point in time and have a sort of good idea of what's going on at any given point in time. What are the outcomes looking like? How many people are we seeing? How many people are we helping to avoid accessing a different service that they don't necessarily need to go to? And that's the stuff that matters to Scottish Government and the NHS. Again, as Kathleen talked about earlier, we have to understand that customer need. And that customer need is making sure that the people are seen by the right professional and the right team at the right time, and given the right course of action or treatment if necessary. And last but not least, we had to say with Scottish Government that this service had to be sufficiently funded, not just to cover the cost of delivery, but to actually provide a fair return for contractors, and to encourage you and your teams to invest in your businesses, to build your offering so that you're able to deliver this service well for your communities. So we worked from there, and then what we've got now is we've got an operational model that we are confident is much more easy to deliver than the previous minor ailment service operational model. And I'm going to talk you through a number of points as to why we think that's the case. Again, messaging is absolutely critical in this, and that is messaging whether it is going from Scottish Government to the people of Scotland, whether it is your team to the people of Scotland, and whether it's your team to other professionals that you come across. Whoever is talking to whoever about this service, it's got to be clean, simple and clear messaging that can't change. This has absolutely got to be seen as the free NHS consultation service. Advice will always be given. So you walk in, you describe your symptoms, we will always give you advice. If it's necessary, NHS treatment may be supplied. And if necessary again, you might be referred on to another healthcare professional if that's the right thing to do. So we need to set that expectation, and part of that will be down to you and your teams with patients, that actually this is about the consultation. That's where the professional value lies. It's your skills and your time that is being valued, and we must work to set patient expectations that they won't necessarily walk away with something in their hands. And that's absolutely fine. The promotion material that will go out, so the new NHS Pharmacy First leaflets and anything that is done by way of promotion, will make sure that that is absolutely the headline, that this is clear from the get-go to people, so that they know what to expect when they access that service. Eligibility. So when we talked about making this service and making it equitable, there have been long and varied discussions about what that actually means. Where we've got to for launch is that anyone who is currently registered with a Scottish GP or is ordinarily resident in Scotland, so for example has a Scottish address, and that includes homeless patients, the travelling community and patients in care homes for launch, those people will all be able to access the service. In time, we have had many discussions, and we are clear that this will extend further to include the prisoner population, so those that are incarcerated, and also the tourist population. Now that might seem like a strange one, but if we go back to recognising that this service is being put in place in part to make sure that people are seen by the right person, even if you're a tourist, if you become unwell and do need to see somebody, if community pharmacy doesn't see them, they will access another part of the NHS, because the NHS is the health provider in Scotland. So why not do it at community pharmacy? Why not see that person and let them be on their way, and not have a service that could be seeing somebody who might be having a heart attack or a stroke, or perhaps some other more urgent or more complex need, and let them have that appointment space. This one I hope you'll really enjoy. We're moving away from registration, so you don't need to worry about that at all anymore. There is no dreaded lapsing anymore, no trying to figure out how many and who and why people have fallen off your registration list. and that means a lot less admin for you and your teams. It's also easier to understand for patients. What other service is there out there where you can register for healthcare, and just because you don't access it, you're no longer eligible to use it until there's something wrong with you. It was just a bit of an unusual one to try and describe. Just as is the case just now, people who are eligible, which we know is more, can actually use this service in any pharmacy. So that maximises accessibility. That's the case just now. It's maybe not as well talked about now. We would always say to patients and encourage them, if they use the same pharmacy, then what happens is a picture of that patient's health is picked up, which can be really, really helpful clinically in picking up patterns of ill health that may be red flags. But they absolutely don't have to. They may live in one area, work in another, be out for the day, be on holiday. It doesn't matter. They can access this service from any pharmacy. The NHS Payment Verification and Counter Fraud services, as they do with any service that's set up in NHS Scotland, will set up a monitoring system that looks for any outliers in people accessing the service. You do not need to worry about, and it is absolutely not your job to worry about people who, we do hear this quite a lot when we talk to pharmacy teams, who are, for example, who may be seen to be abusing the system. You do not need to worry about that unless there is a patient safety issue that you want to address. That will be picked up by payment verification and counter fraud services, so that is one less thing to worry about. And again, this is probably one of the biggest changes here. There will be an approved list of treatments. So whereas just now, pharmacy teams can choose to use any P medicine or any GSL medicine as long as it's not blacklisted, and then a few other things from different parts of the drug tariff, which gives a huge wide range of choice for you. That will no longer be the case. And actually, that also means that the NHS boards no longer have to put so much effort into creating formularies to try and further restrict that choice and control their spending. What we will have, which is currently being developed by the Area Drugs and Therapeutics Committee Collaborative, is an approved list of treatments. So for each condition there will be, we would imagine, at least a first and second line option for each condition. Those options will be shown to be cost effective, and if it's not on that approved list, you will not be paid to supply it on the NHS. So it becomes very simple, and the patients begin to understand what they can expect from the service. If after you've had a consultation the patient is adamant or they want a particular product and that's not on the list, and again, you can think of, you'll have come across this quite often, if somebody's not keen on ibuprofen but wants the Nurofen or something like that, that's absolutely fine. They can purchase that product or that brand that they want, and you can still record that consultation because we've said the values in the consultation, and you'll be recognised for the advice that you've given. That makes this service once for Scotland. There'll be no local variation, and that will be a huge relief for those that have been trying to juggle, as I said, maybe working across 4, 5, 6 different health boards. So hopefully you'll welcome this change. In time, this may be integrated into PMR systems, so your PMR that you use day to day will have this list in a form so that you will hopefully only be able to pick things that are on this approved list from your PMR system, making it easier again for you, and again taking some paper out of the system. That won't be ready for launch, but keep a watch out and keep talking with your PMR supplier, and you'll see it coming down the line, I'm sure. Keeping on that theme of Once for Scotland, we are moving to a truly national patient group direction and service level agreement model. For launch, this will include UTIs and impetigos. They'll look very similar to the PGDs that you're working from just now. But there has been a huge amount of work that's gone into them at a national level between Community Pharmacy Scotland and importantly our NHS partners, to make sure that everybody who needs to be involved is happy with a single PGD. So you will still have to sign a PGD for every health board. That's just the way that clinical governance goes, but it will be the exact same PGD. The only thing that should change is the logo. That's just the start though. In time, there will be a steady rollout of other PGDs for other conditions. Some of you might already be delivering these in your own health board areas. There will be a programme identified of which ones will have the greatest impact and be the ones that can be easily rolled out to community pharmacies across the whole country. And you'll see these coming out in a measured and managed ways. That'll give an even greater equity of access for patients to PGDs because you'll have all the same exclusion and inclusion criteria. And again, no local variation. You'll only need to learn once and you'll only need to be trained for it once. And that becomes a lot easier to communicate with patients and other health professionals. We will be able to develop things like cheat sheets or quick reference guides for example, GP practice team members so that they know exactly what type of patient is included in these PGD services and which patients can't access it. Administration. So that's something I've talked about throughout this section. We have tried to keep this paper-free wherever it is humanly possible. To do that, we're using the Universal Claim Framework to record all this advice, the referrals and the treatment that you will be involved in delivering. Because those are all electronic claims and because all patients can access this service, there'll be no signature needed for any of these interventions, and we can trust in the UCF services electronic claims to make sure that you are paid properly. We hope to move to a place where the only paper that will be involved is if a PGD specifies that a certain form has to be filled out or a patient has to sign something to make sure that they get a supply under a PGD. This will require, as all pharmacy teams should be aware of today with your AMS activity and your current UCS activity, it will require you to be on top of your electronic administration and housekeeping. So that's probably something to revisit if you know it's something you need a bit of work on. Training. So again, returning to this very common theme of Once for Scotland. Our friends here at NHS Education for Scotland, where we're actually recording this webinar, are developing resources to support the day-to-day delivery of NHS Pharmacy First. So those resources and face-to-face events and in fact their own webinar, they'll be dealing much more with the how, the fine detail of the how of NHS Pharmacy First. I'm telling you a bit about what the service looks like and it'll go that sort of level deeper, so we would encourage you to use and access those resources when they are made available. And we'll link to them on our website as well. What we do know is that this service, as you'll probably have picked up already, is going to be an evolving service. It's going to change in many aspects over time. That means the resources will too, and that's another argument for keeping this digital first. There should be next to no paper sent out to you for training. It will all be online or digital downloadable packs, which means that you'll need to pay attention to the version control and dates to make sure you've got the most recent version of these. Also keep an eye on our website and Nessie's to make sure that you catch anything, any updates that are sent out. Now is probably a good point as well to show you how this links to the Community Pharmacy Scotland Vision that was launched in 2017. So this new service that we've spent today describing to you promotes you and your teams as the experts in medicines and pharmaceutical care. We have secured this service and this will put pharmacists right at the heart of the NHS and right in the forefront of people's minds. So expect more professional recognition for all the hard work that you do. There's another link to the current Scottish Government policy for pharmacy, which is achieving excellence in pharmaceutical care. That policy was absolutely clear right at the start of the document that it was going to deliver over time improved and increased use of community pharmacy services, and that is exactly what we're doing. So what's next? What's next for you? We're going to sign off shortly, but what you need to do is you need to have a bit of a think, I suppose, a bit of a get-together with your team. You'll need to consider what might need to change in your business based on what we've talked about in the course of this webinar and on the roadshows that we're out delivering as well. Only you know your business. You know it better than anyone else, so you'll know what might need to change to deliver NHS Pharmacy First. You'll need to think about things like team roles, skill mix, hours even, the impact on your workflow. Sometimes even the physical layout of one pharmacy compared to another might change how you would approach delivering NHS Pharmacy First. And there's also a wee bit about patient expectations, starting to talk to them about the changes that will be coming down the line for NHS Pharmacy First. We absolutely need you to take this conversation to your teams and to your NHS colleagues as well. The Scottish Government and Community Pharmacy Scotland have worked very hard to engage with, again, everybody who's anybody who needs to know about these changes and this new NHS Pharmacy First service. But there will also be bits that need done on the ground. So talking to your GP practice colleagues, talking to your pharmacy colleagues that work in GP practice and indeed in hospital as well, talking to your out of hours colleagues that you'll know quite well if you're a later opening pharmacy, getting them to start understanding about what the messaging is around the service and what will actually be delivered come launch. Between Kathleen and I, we've also touched on a few things that we know just now at the point of recording aren't finalised. I'd strongly encourage you to keep an eye on our website, so that's www.cps.scot. Right on the front page of that, you'll see a big blue block that says NHS Pharmacy First Info Hub. Click there for all the latest news. We will also make sure that any major updates are sent out to our associate members on e-newsletter updates and will be posted as new news stories on the website as well. So if you keep your eye on that, you won't miss a thing. I'd also again take this opportunity to encourage you to engage with the NEST materials and roadshows for a bit more of the how you'll deliver. That'll help inform what changes you might make to your business between now and launch in April. So, if I was to recap a few of the key messages that we've talked about over the course of this webinar. Number one, NHS Pharmacy First is new. It's a new service, and from what we can see from a bit of research, it's a world first and a world leader. Nowhere else comes close to the scope, the ambition and the scale of this service. It's something to absolutely be proud of, and a lot of it is doing what we're doing now, but doing a little bit more and doing it better. But that comes with the recognition. In the way that we'll record these consultations, we will finally bring all those bits that we do to support our communities up onto the table for everyone to see, and we'll finally be in a place where we can show the true value of community pharmacy in Scotland. Number two, NHS Pharmacy First really does position us at the heart of the NHS, and it delivers for the health of the nation. We are all part of a pharmacy team, but we're also all citizens too. We're all members of, we're all part of Scotland. And actually, it's really comforting to know that there is a competent and confident network out there who are ready to look after me if there's something wrong. I just need to be pointed in the right direction. Number three, as Kathleen went over a wee bit earlier, things are unstable out there for business at the moment. To have a strong, sustainable future of this community pharmacy network that we're so proud of, we absolutely have to deliver NHS Pharmacy First, and we have to deliver it well and evidence it. What that'll also provide us is a base. Now, from that, what we'll be able to do is in time, and this is the much longer view, 10, 12 years perhaps, where we develop our independent prescribing services. So we'll be able to have people walking in and we'll be able to treat them for many more conditions. We'll be able to, in time, get rid of patient group directions because most or all of the pharmacists out there will be delivering an independent prescribing offering, which again we hope will not just deliver for the people of Scotland, but will give people that bit more pride in being a community pharmacist, being part of a community pharmacy team, and really making a difference for the people of Scotland. That's really the end of that today from me and from Kathleen. So thank you very much for listening in. We hope that you're able to make it to the face-to-face roadshows that are out and about. Those will give you a bit more time to explore this with the CPS team and board members. It'll give you the opportunity to interact with other pharmacy teams like your own, to ask as many questions as you like. If you can't make it to those, or if you've got unanswered questions between our webinars and between the NES content and webinars, then we are here for you. Please do check our website at cps.scot. If you have any questions, please email inquiries@cps.scot. And the team are also always available for you on the phone at 0131 467 7766. So that's a final thank you from us. Again, enjoy the rest of your day, whether you're starting it or whether you're ending it. Goodbye.